October 15, 1944. Hürtgen Forest Sector, Germany. Low overcast clouds press down on the muddy terrain between Allied lines and the fortified German positions that block the approach to strategic road junctions beyond the dense woodland. Captain Mike Henderson crouched behind fallen timber with his radio operator, watching the tree line 400 yards ahead, where German machine gun positions had been expertly camouflaged among logs, earth berms, and firing apertures cut precisely at waist height to maximize killing effectiveness while minimizing exposure. The morning's artillery smoke drifted in pale green wisps across the forest floor as Henderson keyed his VHF radio and established contact with Jug Flight, a pair of P-47 Thunderbolts circling above the weather ceiling at 8,000 feet, their massive radial engines producing the distinctive rumble that had become synonymous with American close air support throughout the European campaign. The aircraft carried a mixed load of conventional bombs, rockets, and the relatively new incendiary canisters that field commanders were learning to employ against fortified positions. Staff Sergeant Tommy Rodriguez adjusted his SCR-300 radio while monitoring the frequency that connected ground controllers with the orbiting fighter bombers, part of the sophisticated communication network that enabled coordination between infantry units and aircraft operating in weather conditions that challenged every aspect of close air support operations. The radio crackled with the professional calm that characterized American air-ground coordination as pilots and ground controllers verified target locations and attack procedures. German voices had been audible from the tree line throughout the morning, their tones suggesting confidence and even mockery as Obergefreiter Klaus Weber and his machine gun crew discussed American fighter-bomber tactics that they considered inaccurate and ineffective against properly prepared defensive positions. Weber's MG-42 team had survived multiple air attacks during the retreat from Normandy, while maintaining effective defensive fires that had stopped several American infantry assaults. Henderson transmitted target coordinates with the precision that reflected months of training in forward air control procedures, his voice steady despite the tactical situation that required danger, close air support within 200 yards of friendly positions. The grid references and target descriptions he provided would guide P-47 pilots through attack runs that demanded split-second timing and absolute accuracy to avoid friendly casualties while achieving maximum effect against enemy positions. The first P-47 rolled into its attack dive with the mechanical precision that characterized American air-ground operations, releasing incendiary canisters on a flat, low-altitude run that spread jellied fuel across the German tree line with devastating effectiveness. Orange sheets of flame licked under tree roots and between log bunkers as the forest edge that had provided sanctuary for German defenders suddenly transformed into a blazing barrier that denied cover and forced immediate tactical decisions. German voices that had mocked American fighter bombers fell silent as the tree line erupted in flames that spread with terrifying speed through the dry underbrush and wooden fortifications that had seemed impregnable minutes earlier. The incendiary attack had achieved effects that conventional high-explosive bombs could never have accomplished, transforming defensive advantages into tactical liabilities through the systematic application of appropriate weapons technology. Henderson's voice remained calm as he adjusted the fire mission with professional precision, transmitting course corrections that would walk subsequent attacks across the entire defensive line, while maintaining safety margins that protected American forces advancing toward objectives that were rapidly becoming untenable for enemy defenders. If a forest is your armor, what happens when the edge itself turns into fire? The development of American close air support capabilities during World War II represented a systematic integration of aircraft, ground forces, and communication networks that created unprecedented tactical flexibility while enabling coordinated attacks against fortified positions that had previously required costly ground assaults or extensive artillery preparation. The U.S. 9th Air Force had refined these procedures through combat experience in North Africa, Italy, and France, developing doctrine that emphasized precision, safety, and coordinated effects. The P-47 Thunderbolt emerged as the optimal platform for close air support missions through its combination of robust construction, heavy armament, and payload capacity that enabled operations at low altitudes under adverse weather conditions. The aircraft's radial engine could absorb significant battle damage while maintaining power, while its 8 50-caliber machine guns provided devastating firepower against personnel and light vehicles that complemented its bomb and rocket-carrying capacity. Forward air controller procedures had evolved from improvised battlefield coordination to systematic doctrine that integrated specially trained personnel with reliable communication equipment and standardized attack procedures. FACEs operated with infantry units while maintaining radio contact with orbiting aircraft through VHF frequencies that provided clear communication despite battlefield interference and electronic warfare threats that challenged other communication systems. The colored smoke marking system enabled precise target identification under conditions where visual recognition was difficult or impossible due to weather, terrain, or tactical considerations. Different colored smoke grenades provided reference points that pilots could use to identify friendly positions, target areas, and attack corridors while maintaining situational awareness that prevented friendly fire incidents during complex air-ground operations. Pre-brief target boxes and cab rank orbiting patterns provided aircraft with predefined operating areas and attack procedures that reduced communication requirements while enabling rapid response to ground requests for fire support. The cab rank system maintained multiple aircraft on station above battlefield areas, ready to respond immediately to target identification and attack authorization from qualified ground controllers. Incendiary weapons had proven particularly effective against fortified positions that relied on natural or constructed cover for protection against conventional weapons. Firebombs containing jellied fuel could penetrate covered positions while creating sustained fires that denied the use of defensive positions even after the initial attack had concluded. These weapons were especially effective against tree lines, bunkers, and other positions that incorporated flammable materials. The integration of close air support with artillery fires enabled coordinated attacks that combined the precision of air-delivered weapons with the sustained firepower of ground-based artillery systems. Time-on-target procedures allowed artillery units to deliver coordinated fires that caught enemy forces as they attempted to move or reposition in response to air attacks, creating systematic destruction that exceeded the capabilities of either air or artillery alone. German defensive doctrine had adapted to American air superiority through extensive use of camouflage, dispersal, and underground construction that minimized vulnerability to conventional air attacks. German positions were typically well prepared with overhead cover, alternate positions, and escape routes that enabled defenders to survive air attacks while maintaining defensive capabilities that could resume effective operations once air attacks had concluded. The tactical employment of fighter bombers against point targets required coordination between multiple agencies, including air traffic control, artillery fire direction centers, and ground combat units that might be endangered by air-delivered weapons. These coordination requirements had driven development of communication procedures and safety protocols that enabled routine employment of air power in direct support of ground operations. Weather conditions in the European theatre during autumn 1944 frequently limited visibility and created challenging flying conditions that tested pilot skills and aircraft capabilities while requiring modified tactics and procedures. Low overcast, rain, and limited visibility were common conditions that required specialized techniques for target identification and attack execution, while maintaining safety standards that prevented fratricidal incidents. German anti-aircraft capabilities had been degraded by sustained Allied air attacks and resource shortages, but remained dangerous to low-flying aircraft operating in direct support of ground forces. Fighter-bomber pilots had to balance the requirements for accurate weapons delivery against the need to minimize exposure to ground-based air defense systems that could achieve surprising effectiveness against aircraft operating predictable attack profiles. The logistical support required for sustained close air support operations included specialized weapons, maintenance capabilities, and supply networks that could provide rapid turnaround of aircraft operating from forward airfields. The complexity of these support requirements had driven development of organizational capabilities and resource allocation systems that enabled sustained operations despite challenging tactical and environmental conditions. American training programs for close air support emphasized safety, precision, and coordination, while preparing pilots and ground personnel for the complex operational environment that characterized air-ground operations. These training programs reflected lessons learned from combat experience while incorporating technological improvements and procedural refinements that enhanced effectiveness while reducing risks to friendly forces. October 15, 1944, 13:45 hours. Hürtgen Forest. Captain Henderson initiated the close air support request as his company remained pinned down by interlocking machine gun fires from German positions that had been expertly sighted to command all approaches to the road junction that represented the day's objective. The VHF radio crackled with standard communication procedures as Henderson established contact with Jug 2-1 flight, confirming aircraft availability and ordnance load, while beginning the systematic process that would coordinate air attacks with ground operations. Jug 2-1, Anvil 6-7, how copy? Henderson transmitted with the calm professionalism that characterized American air-ground coordination. The response came immediately from Major Bob Williams, flight leader of 2 P-47 Thunderbolts loaded with a mixed ordnance package that included conventional bombs, rockets, and incendiary canisters specifically selected for attacks against fortified Treeline positions. Williams confirmed visual contact with the green smoke that marked the target reference point while beginning his tactical assessment of wind conditions, target geometry, and attack corridors that would enable effective weapons delivery while maintaining safety margins that protected friendly forces operating within 200 yards of the intended impact area. The attack would require precise coordination and split-second timing to achieve maximum effectiveness. The first attack pass was a reconnaissance by fire, using the P-47's 850 caliber machine guns to test for anti-aircraft positions while suppressing enemy fires that might interfere with subsequent bombing attacks. Williams rolled into a shallow dive that brought his aircraft to 500 feet altitude while maintaining sufficient speed to avoid ground-based air defense weapons that might be concealed in the target area. The machine gun strafing attack stitched across the German tree line with devastating accuracy, forcing defenders to seek cover while revealing muzzle flashes and defensive positions that had been invisible from ground level. The heavy bullets shredded tree branches and log construction, while creating psychological pressure that disrupted German defensive coordination and fire discipline. The second attack pass delivered the primary ordnance as Williams released 2 incendiary canisters in a low, flat trajectory that maximized the spread pattern of jellied fuel across the target area. The canisters burst on impact, spreading burning fuel throughout the German positions while igniting dry vegetation and wooden fortifications that created sustained fires beyond the initial blast effects. Within seconds of impact, orange sheets of flame spread along the tree line as the incendiary gel adhered to surfaces and created fires that could not be easily extinguished using available German firefighting capabilities. The flames spread through foxholes, bunkers, and communication trenches, while generating heat and smoke that made defensive positions untenable for their occupants. German machine gun positions that had dominated the battlefield for hours suddenly fell silent as defending crews were forced to abandon positions that had become death traps rather than protective cover. The systematic application of appropriate weapons technology had transformed German defensive advantages into tactical liabilities within minutes of the initial attack. Henderson immediately coordinated with the second P-47 in the flight, providing target adjustments that would extend the incendiary attack to cover the entire German defensive line while maintaining coordination with artillery units that were preparing to deliver time-on-target fires against suspected fallback positions. The coordination between air and artillery represented the systematic integration that characterized American combined arms operations. The second P-47 attacked with similar precision, releasing incendiary canisters 75 meters left of the original impact point to extend the fire coverage across interlocking machine gun positions that had been mutually supporting the German defense. The additional fires created a continuous barrier that denied the use of the entire tree line while forcing German defenders to abandon carefully prepared positions. Artillery fire direction centers had been monitoring the air attack through radio coordination, with Henderson's forward air control team enabling immediate delivery of high-explosive rounds against German assembly areas and escape routes as soon as the air attack had concluded. The time-on-target salvo landed precisely as German forces attempted to withdraw from their burning positions. The coordination between air and artillery fires created systematic destruction that prevented German forces from conducting organized withdrawal while denying them the opportunity to establish alternate defensive positions in adjacent terrain features. The combined effects exceeded the capabilities of either air or artillery alone, while demonstrating the force multiplication achieved through proper coordination. A third pair of P-47s checked in with Henderson as the initial aircraft departed for rearming and refueling, maintaining continuous air coverage that could respond to any German attempt to reoccupy positions or establish new defensive lines. The continuous availability of air support reflected the cab rank system that maintained multiple flights on station above battlefield areas. Henderson coordinated the employment of the fresh aircraft against specific strongpoints that remained active despite the incendiary attacks, directing fragmentation and high-explosive bombs against bunkers that had survived the fires while maintaining communication with advancing infantry elements that were exploiting the gaps created in German defensive lines. The final air attacks were conducted in close coordination with advancing American infantry, requiring precise timing and communication to avoid friendly casualties while providing fire support that enabled ground forces to assault positions that would have been impossible to approach under the original defensive arrangement. The systematic progression from air attack to ground assault demonstrated the integration that characterized American tactical doctrine. By 15:30 hours, American infantry had successfully occupied the German tree line positions, finding evidence of the devastating effectiveness of coordinated air-ground operations in the abandoned equipment, destroyed fortifications, and clear indicators that German forces had conducted hasty withdrawal rather than organized defense of prepared positions that had cost significant time and resources to construct. The successful employment of P-47 incendiary attacks against the German Treeline positions created immediate tactical advantages that extended far beyond the destruction of individual defensive positions to broader operational opportunities that had been blocked by effective enemy resistance. The road junction that had been the day's objective became accessible to American forces within hours of the air attack, enabling rapid movement of supplies, reinforcements, and supporting weapons that accelerated subsequent operations. American confidence in air-ground coordination procedures increased dramatically as ground units observed the devastating effectiveness of properly coordinated close air support against fortified positions that had seemed impossible to assault using conventional infantry tactics. The demonstration that air power could achieve precision effects while maintaining safety margins encouraged more aggressive employment of available air assets in subsequent operations. German defensive planning throughout the sector required immediate revision as commanders recognized that positions relying on natural cover could be systematically eliminated through American air attacks that transformed defensive advantages into tactical vulnerabilities. The psychological impact on German defenders was significant as they realized that carefully prepared positions offered no sanctuary from coordinated air-ground attacks. The operational tempo increased substantially as American forces exploited the gaps created by successful air attacks, enabling rapid advance towards subsequent objectives, while German forces struggled to establish alternate defensive lines without the preparation time that had been available for their original positions. The speed of American advance exceeded planning projections while reducing casualties that would have resulted from frontal assaults. Logistical operations improved dramatically as the cleared road junction enabled efficient movement of ammunition, medical supplies, and replacement personnel that supported sustained offensive operations. The transportation network that became available through successful air-ground coordination multiplied American operational capabilities while reducing the time required for resupply operations that had been constrained by German defensive fires. Medical evacuation procedures benefited from improved access routes that enabled rapid movement of wounded personnel to treatment facilities while reducing exposure to enemy fires that had previously threatened evacuation operations. The medical advantages provided by successful air attacks contributed to improved casualty survival rates while maintaining unit morale and combat effectiveness. Artillery positioning opportunities expanded significantly as cleared areas became available for emplacement of supporting weapons that could provide fires in support of subsequent operations. The artillery advantages gained through air-ground coordination enabled more effective fire support while reducing ammunition requirements through improved positioning and target identification capabilities. Intelligence gathering capabilities improved as American forces gained access to abandoned German positions that provided information about enemy defensive techniques, equipment capabilities, and tactical procedures that informed planning for future operations. The intelligence gained through successful air attacks contributed to improved understanding of German defensive capabilities and limitations. Communication network expansion became possible as cleared areas enabled installation of telephone lines and radio relay stations that improved coordination between units, while providing redundant communication capabilities that enhanced operational security and coordination effectiveness. The communication advantages multiplied the benefits of successful air-ground coordination. German counterattack capabilities were significantly reduced as the loss of prepared defensive positions forced enemy forces to operate from hasty positions that lacked the protection and fields of fire that had characterized their original defensive arrangements. The degradation of German defensive capabilities enabled American forces to maintain offensive momentum while reducing the resources required for subsequent operations. Allied air superiority was reinforced through successful employment of close air support that demonstrated American capabilities while reducing German confidence in their ability to establish effective defensive positions against coordinated air-ground attacks. The psychological warfare effects of successful air operations extended beyond immediate tactical advantages to strategic implications for continued German resistance. Training validation occurred as successful air-ground coordination demonstrated the effectiveness of procedures and equipment that had been developed through extensive training programs, encouraging continued investment in close air support capabilities while providing practical lessons that could be incorporated into ongoing training efforts for both aircrew and ground personnel. The overwhelming success of P-47 incendiary attacks against German treeline positions validated American doctrine that emphasized systematic integration of air power with ground operations through reliable communication networks, standardized procedures, and coordinated employment of appropriate weapon systems for specific tactical situations. This integration became a model for close air support operations that influenced military thinking throughout the Cold War and subsequent conflicts where similar challenges required coordinated solutions. The P-47 Thunderbolt demonstrated its superiority as a close air support platform through robust construction that enabled low-altitude operations under adverse conditions while providing the payload capacity necessary for diverse mission requirements. The aircraft's ability to carry incendiary weapons, conventional bombs, and rockets, while maintaining the durability necessary for repeated combat operations, established design requirements that influenced subsequent ground attack aircraft development. Communication technology advances enabled reliable coordination between ground controllers and aircraft operating under challenging weather conditions through VHF radio systems that provided clear transmission despite electronic interference and atmospheric conditions that degraded other communication methods. The communication reliability became essential for safe and effective close air support operations while establishing technological requirements for future air-ground coordination systems. Weapons technology development focused on creating ordnance types that could achieve specific tactical effects against different target categories, with incendiary weapons proving particularly effective against positions that relied on natural or constructed cover for protection. The systematic development of specialized weapons for specific tactical applications became a characteristic of American military technology development that provided decisive advantages over enemies who relied on conventional approaches. Tactical doctrine evolution incorporated lessons learned from successful air-ground operations while establishing procedures and training programs that could rapidly disseminate effective techniques throughout American military units. The institutional learning capabilities that enabled rapid adaptation and improvement of tactical methods became a decisive advantage that multiplied American effectiveness while enabling continuous improvement of operational capabilities. Safety procedures development addressed the challenges of employing air-delivered weapons in close proximity to friendly forces while maintaining effectiveness against enemy targets. The danger-close procedures that emerged from combat experience established safety standards and communication protocols that enabled routine employment of air power in direct support of ground operations without unacceptable risks to friendly forces. Training program refinement incorporated combat lessons while establishing standardized curricula that prepared aircrew and ground personnel for the complex operational environment that characterized air-ground operations. The training standardization enabled rapid expansion of close air support capabilities while maintaining quality standards that ensured consistent performance across multiple units and operational theaters. Logistical system development addressed the complex support requirements for sustained close air support operations, including specialized ordnance, maintenance capabilities, and supply networks that could provide rapid aircraft turnaround from forward airfields. The logistics innovations enabled sustained operations while reducing the time and resources required to maintain effective air support for extended ground operations. Industrial capacity utilization enabled mass production of specialized ordnance and equipment required for close air support operations while maintaining quality standards that ensured reliable performance under combat conditions. The industrial capabilities that supported air-ground operations established American advantages that could not be matched by enemies who lacked comparable manufacturing capacity and technological sophistication. Intelligence integration capabilities enabled rapid analysis and dissemination of tactical lessons learned through combat experience while informing development of improved weapons, procedures, and training programs that enhanced effectiveness of air-ground operations. The systematic approach to learning and improvement became a decisive advantage that enabled continuous adaptation to changing tactical conditions. Coordination procedures development established systematic methods for integrating air power with artillery, armor, and infantry operations while maintaining safety and effectiveness standards that maximized combined arms capabilities. The coordination innovations became standard American practice while providing tactical advantages that exceeded the capabilities of forces that employed air and ground assets independently. International influence extended American close air support doctrine and technology to Allied forces, while establishing American leadership in air-ground operations that continued throughout the post-war period. The technological and doctrinal innovations developed during World War II became foundations for NATO standardization and cooperative development programs that maintained Western advantages in air-ground integration. The transformation of a German Treeline from impregnable defensive barrier into a blazing liability demonstrated the power of systematic coordination to overcome apparent tactical advantages through the proper application of appropriate technology, training, and procedures. German defenders who had mocked American fighter bombers discovered that their carefully prepared positions could become death traps when confronted by coordinated air-ground attacks that transformed defensive assets into tactical vulnerabilities through precise application of specialized weapons. The irony was historically profound and tactically decisive in ways that extended far beyond individual engagements to fundamental questions about the relationship between defensive positions and offensive capabilities in modern warfare. German forces that had relied on natural terrain features for protection discovered that American technological and doctrinal innovations could systematically eliminate defensive advantages while creating new vulnerabilities that German tactical doctrine had never anticipated. The human dimension of this transformation revealed truths about institutional learning, technological adaptation, and professional competence that enabled American forces to develop solutions to tactical challenges that had previously seemed insurmountable through conventional approaches. The coordination between aircrew and ground controllers demonstrated capabilities that exceeded the sum of individual components, while establishing new standards for military effectiveness under challenging conditions. The strategic implications extended far beyond immediate tactical success to broader questions about American military capabilities and the institutional foundations that enabled continuous improvement of operational methods through systematic analysis of combat experience. The success of air-ground coordination provided evidence that American training, equipment, and organizational approaches could achieve decisive advantages when properly integrated and systematically employed. The ultimate testament to American achievement lay in the speed and completeness with which coordinated air-ground attacks could eliminate defensive positions that had required extensive time and resources to construct. The systematic destruction of German defensive capabilities demonstrated that superior coordination could overcome individual tactical advantages while establishing new paradigms for offensive operations against prepared defensive positions. The forest edge that had appeared to provide armor for German defenders became a liability when confronted by American systems that could convert natural advantages into tactical weaknesses through the coordinated application of appropriate technology. The quiet truth of the Thunderbolt story transcended individual heroic actions to reveal how communication networks, logistics systems, and institutional discipline could systematically overcome enemy advantages through process rather than improvisation. The method that turned defensive cover into open ground established principles that would influence American military operations for generations. That systematic coordination could overcome apparent disadvantages. That appropriate technology properly employed could neutralize enemy advantages, and that institutional capabilities could create tactical opportunities through disciplined application of proven procedures rather than relying on individual heroism or technological superiority alone. If a simple tree line could be transformed from enemy asset to tactical liability through coordinated application of available capabilities, what other apparent enemy advantages could be systematically eliminated through proper integration of American strengths? The lesson transcended immediate tactical success to demonstrate that process could triumph over position, coordination could overcome individual capability, and systematic application of institutional advantages could achieve results that exceeded every conventional expectation. Subscribe to uncover the American systems, radios, doctrine, logistics, and institutional learning that turned enemy cover into liability while establishing the foundations for modern combined arms operations that continue to define military effectiveness in the contemporary era.